TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
We want to stop being solution factories. And most leaders didn't realize that was an option. Then I say, well, if you love your day filled with problems, you love it when people come to you with things to be solved.
Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. Well, I hope all is well with you today. It is another beautiful day here in North Carolina, and this episode is brought to you by our sponsors, Ignite Management Services and Liberty Strength. These sponsors help me bring these shows to you each and every week, so I encourage you to click on their links below and check them out. Also, I want to encourage you to join us on our growing YouTube channel. Search for Deep Leadership on YouTube for videos of all my interviews and exclusive content. Well, that is it. Today we're going to be talking about unleashing your leadership potential, and my guest is Miriam Meima. Miriam is the co-founder of the 2 Million Leaders Project. Her goal is to inspire 2 million people to see themselves as leaders and aim for joy and success simultaneously. She helps people unlock their next level of performance and reach their potential as leaders. Now, this was a great back and forth conversation that will help you become your best as a leader. And I had a blast talking with Miriam, and I know you'll enjoy this as well. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Leadership. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former Cold War submarine officer who spent 20 plus years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Are you ready for some real-world actionable advice from John as well as his expert guests?
I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Miriam Meima. Miriam has been a coach and facilitator for over 20 years, dedicating her life to studying the overlap between business and psychology. Miriam has coached founders and executives at hundreds of companies, including a dozen valued at over $1 billion. She works one-on-one with senior leaders, facilitates team offsites, and develops customized leadership development journeys for leaders at all levels. Her specialty is in helping people unlock the next level of performance while maximizing authenticity. I am excited to have her on the show to learn more from her deep experience in leadership development. So Miriam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you and great to have you on the show. And I am excited to learn from you. That's what we do on the show is we learn from experts like yourself. And I've got an empty notebook here, and I usually take a lot of notes, so I'm excited to learn from your experience. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your company, 2M Leaders. What do you do there, and what makes your company unique and special?
Yeah, great. I'm hoping you'll tell me as well. So I have my vantage point, and I'm thinking, sometimes all of us get so focused on the world that we live in that perhaps you have a perspective that I won't even have. But the 2 Million Leaders Project is my company. And this is in some ways a coaching and leadership development company like you would find in many places. I think what makes us different is the fact that we have a mission to work with over 2 million leaders across the globe. And by working with 2 million leaders, what I mean by that is I believe that it's necessary. The World Economic Forum is actually telling us we need to retool or reskill 1 billion people across the globe in order for them to remain marketable as the world becomes more digitally informed and AI becomes more integrated into the way we work. So 1 billion people out there need new skills, and in their short list of skills that people need are emotional intelligence and leadership skills. So I view it as my personal mission to ensure that I am somehow, some way, And this podcast is one element of that purpose or mission for me, is figuring out how can I take my experience and how can I take leadership as a concept and boil it down to essential skills and make sure I'm making those available to at least 2 million people.
That is exciting. And what, I guess, before we dive into some of the questions, I'm just curious, why 2 million? Where did you guys settle on that? It's funny because the podcast we do is to build a world with better bosses. And I just say, more bosses, more better bosses. You're saying 2 million we want to get.
2 million. I know. Why 2 million? Yeah. This started back. So I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan in the United States. I moved around quite a bit, but I lived for some time in Colorado. And when I was in Colorado, I had the opportunity to go to an event that was at the Aspen Institute. And that's where a lot of world leaders gather and they have amazing conversations. And I was lucky enough to be in a room with people, that I had no business being in the room with. Essentially, that's how it felt, right? That's what imposter syndrome always tells us. But what I noticed is I was talking to a lot of people and they were all telling me stories about how they had reached 1 million people. It was for some reason, it was a very consistent number that I kept hearing over and over and over again. And at that point in my life, it was inconceivable to reach 1 million people. It was inconceivable. And it was in different industries and different ways that those people were essentially orienting towards 1 million. And so I set out to ask myself, who would be my 1 million people? Should I be moving to Africa and working with orphanages? Should I be working? I was really, really unsure. And I asked myself over and over and over again, who are my people? What if I were going to focus on 1 million people, who would they be? And once the clarity came, it was obvious that my people are they're leaders in first world countries. And I believe that if I can reach many leaders in first world countries, the rest will take care of itself. And so I set my sights on 1 million. I thought, why 1 million? Why not double it? Why go for 1 when we could go for 2?
Yes. Good. I love it. I mean, that's, you have a very clear goal and a very clear mission, and you even name your company after it. So I love that. It's absolutely purpose driven, is purpose focused, and you have a mission and you're on it. You're on mission. So you're on mission. Hopefully we'll get you close to, I don't know if we'll get 1 million listeners, but we'll get a lot of listeners out of this interview. So let's go down to the basics. So leadership is, there's a lot of different definitions. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about leadership. How do you define leadership? What's your definition and how you focus leadership when you do your teaching and instructing?
For me, great leadership is consciously designing the impact we have on others. It's deciding what is the impact that I want to have, and then learning how to reverse engineering that. So consciously designing the impact I have on others.
Interesting. So this would, take the shape of, transformational leadership, where we're trying to impact others to bring out their full potential, to help them achieve their best. But how does that affect the bottom line? How does it affect the performance of the business? If we constantly design the impact we make on people, how will we make more money? How will we grow our business? Are they related?
They're definitely related. Yeah. So I spent the very, very many years early in my career working specifically with subject matter experts that had linked behavior in business to bottom line success. So Bill Neal and Dan Dennison from the University of Michigan Business School have spent 25 years studying the link between culture and bottom line success. So we know that the way that people think and the way that they behave dictates the decisions they're making day to day and translates to bottom line success. So depending on what metrics matter to us, or what, maybe it's money, maybe it's growth, maybe it's profitability, maybe it's employee or customer retention, regardless of what we're orienting towards, we can map that essentially to what is it that we need people, how do we need people behaving? How do we need people thinking? And then there is our leaders in place to help influence that outcome.
I love it. So it makes sense. So the two are tied together. So if we can impact people, then we can impact results.
Absolutely. Yes. To me, that's felt very intuitive my whole life. I was 13 when people started to tell me I should become a business psychologist, but I realized that that's not intuitive for everyone. We don't, not everybody on the planet makes that link or sees that link as so obvious.
This is an interesting point that you bring up, because that's one of the reasons I started writing and did a podcast, is because I realized what I was defining as leadership, what I was practicing as leadership for all these years, 30 plus years, was different than many of my colleagues in corporate, in these global companies that I work for. So what do you think the difference is between your definition and what a lot of people maybe mistake as leadership, or what they may think about leadership? What's the difference?
Yeah, I think a lot of us get stuck on outcomes and driving outcomes and forget the means by which that will arrive. We can arrive at that, and we forget. I really truly believe most of us are minimizing the impact that we're having on people all the time. Family members, people we're passing by on the street, we are influencing each other all the time. And we are completely oblivious to one of our greatest points of leverage for driving the outcomes that we so greatly care about and focus on.
Yeah, it's interesting, because that's one of the things I saw just in my experience with corporate, in the corporate world, is that a lot of people, they would isolate themselves. They would, they were busy, right? They're in meetings, they're on phone calls, and they're in the office with the door shut, and they never get out to where their people are and see their people. And I in my books, I say leadership is a people business. It's all about people. And when you miss that thing, when you're working on your email list or your to-do list, you're not engaging the people that get the results. So I think, to me, it's obvious as well. And so is that when you're doing leadership development, do you bring people back down to earth and say, it's about people?
Oh, it's definitely about people. Well, I ask them first, what do you want to be known for as a leader? And I would definitely encourage everyone who's listening to right now, if you don't already have that at top of mind, to ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? I don't really mean outcomes. I really mean, if people were to describe you, what words would they use? What adjectives or characteristics would come to mind? And that's usually a good clue in terms of how they want to be perceived, is how they want to show up. And then we can start to figure out, when is that happening and when is that not happening? And how do we close the gap between your intentions and what's currently your reality, which I would call your current impact and your intentions? We need to close the gap.
This is some really interesting stuff. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you're right that we make an impact. And one of the things I think of when you talk to just about anyone, someone sitting on the plane seat next to you, you're at a soccer game, whatever, you talk to somebody, everyone's got a story about a good boss and a bad boss. Right. And we remember the people that we work for that inspired us and helped, bring out the best of us. Right. We remember those people. And we also remember the people that made us feel small, or made us feel or frustrated us, or, by micromanaging us. We know these leaders. And so the question is, what do you want to be known for, is kind of interesting. It's like, if people remember you 10 years from now, what do you want to be known for? I think that's an important question to get down to. Well, then what actions are you taking to be known for that?
Exactly. Are you actually operating in integrity with those values or those intentions? Yeah. And do you even know? Most people haven't actually required on themselves to have the self-awareness or situational awareness to know what's happening for me and what's the impact that has on others. And those are usually the areas in which leaders can very quickly grow substantially their impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about senior managers. You work with a lot of senior managers, C-suites, and what are some things that when they discover it, they say, oh, I wish I had known that earlier. I wish I had known that when I was younger. What are some of those aha moments that you found with some of the senior leaders you work with?
I believe there's a certain level at which we want to stop being solution factories. And most leaders didn't realize that was an option. We all just felt like that was part of the job, to be solution factories. And I say, well, if you love your day filled with problems, you love it when people come to you with things to be solved, please keep giving them solutions every day, all day. Keep giving them solutions. If you do not want your day filled with problems, you don't have to. It's actually possible to create an environment, a culture in which people come to you and say, here's what's going on. Here's what I would want to do. Does that sound right to you? Which is a very different scenario than most leaders or most managers are experiencing right now. So that's one thing, is essentially making that pivot. And another is that it's okay to have questions instead of answers.
Yes.
And that they do go hand in hand, because learning how to ask the right questions is usually the unlock that is required for people to start to solve things for themselves.
I want to unpack that a little bit, because that's one of the biggest things that I learned in my career. I was 32 when they gave me my first manufacturing plant, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I had the corner office, right? And so I thought I had to have all the answers, right? I'm the guy in the corner office. I have to be the solution factory, right? The problem is I had no solutions. I was young. I was inexperienced, right? I was in the military prior to corporate life, so I didn't really know manufacturing that well. I had employees that worked for me that had been in the company as long as I'd been on Earth, right? So how do I become the solution factory when I don't have all the answers? And what I learned in that first job as a general manager of a manufacturing business was my questions were more important than my answers. And having the ability to ask questions and listen and get input from others, it unlocked the collective wisdom of the team more than and I didn't do it on purpose. I did it because I was clueless, but it ended up creating an amazing culture where everybody was part of, solving problems, running the business, and everybody was fully engaged because I asked a lot of questions. So what you said was moving away from being a solution factory, moving away from statements and solving problems to more questioning and having people come to you with answers. That's a big thing to learn when you figure that out. I imagine that many of your leaders are saying, "Wow, that unlocked so much from so much more that I can do in an organization when I'm not the center point for problem solve."
Oh my gosh, it really does. It unlocks a lot of time and energy and decreases stress levels. And what's true is sometimes you do need to provide the solution. Sometimes what people need from us is the answer. It's just a question of, is this one of those times, or are they defaulting to me because I haven't empowered them? So I usually say a good step from giving solutions, which a lot of us are in that habit, to a good next step is to say, I'm happy to give you my answer, but before I do, what would you do if you didn't have me to come to? What would be your instinct? So that gives me so much more information as their manager of where I still need to train them or to develop them. Because I have now, and they're telling me what their instincts are, which is the information I need to be able to coach them.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
As a leader, you're responsible for the mission and the people assigned to you. Regardless of the size of your team, employees are depending on you for their lives and careers. For the sake of your team and the people who entrust you with this role, you need to master the skills to become a great leader. Best-selling leadership author John Rennie is proud to introduce the Qualified Leadership book series. This new series teaches you how to become a people-centered leader. Great leaders know that employees who are respected, appreciated, and allowed to grow will go the extra mile. These books provide real-world leadership wisdom written from a hands-on perspective. If you want to be a more effective leader, this is the one book series you should read this year. This 3-book series contains the following best-selling leadership books: I Have the Watch, You Have the Watch, and All in the Same Boat for one low price of $39.99. Begin your journey to become a leader worth following. Go to johnsrennie.com and get your order in today.
This episode is brought to you by Ignite Management Services. Ignite is led by Mike Watson, who you might remember from episode 137. Mike and his team believe that everything starts with leadership. Whether it's strategy execution or cultural transformation, it's the role of the leader to create the conditions for their people to succeed. The team at Ignite can help you develop critical habits to enhance your leadership capability and transform your business. Ignite Management is now offering the Resilient Leadership Assessment Tool.
This is an online questionnaire designed to assess and guide leadership development, coaching, and team building. It provides leaders an opportunity to gain insights into their leadership strengths and development needs. After taking this assessment, you will receive a custom, detailed report that provides practical and actionable recommendations to enhance your effectiveness. I have taken this assessment myself and found it to be extremely valuable in helping me make changes to my leadership approach. Right now, Ignite is offering 15% off the price of this tool to the deep leadership audience. Go to ignitemanagement.ca and enter the code START15 at checkout to get started today. This episode is brought to you by Jeremy Clevenger at Liberty Strength. As a high-performing leader, you know that leadership isn't about telling people what to do, it's about leading by example. And for most people, the one area that they are lacking when it comes to leading by example is their health and fitness. By improving your health and fitness, every other area of your life improves. Your energy skyrockets, your sleep improves, your confidence increases, and more. But how can you get and stay fit as a busy leader? Well, you do what you've always done. You hire the best people for the job. Don't struggle on your own. Put Liberty Strength in your corner. Jeremy and his team will work with you to take your physique, mindset, nutritional habits, and more to the next level with his step-by-step, all-inclusive coaching program. I've worked with Liberty Strength for the past 2 years, and I'm in the best shape of my life, and I'm still hitting strength personal records at 56 years old. If you want to step up your game, reach out to Jeremy at libertystrengthtx.com to find out more and get your initial consultation scheduled with him today. You know, another thing I was thinking about when we were talking about that, one of the things I believe is good for people is to be challenged. Like, we want to be challenged. Like, good employees want to be given the ball on the fourth down with 2 minutes to go. They want the ball, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we're always solving their problems, then they feel like I'm never challenged in this job. But the boss has always got to be the solution provider. So one of the things I found is if I give my good people the ball sometimes and let them run with it, they're much more excited to come to work. And they're working on some project that has high visibility and it's going to impact the organization. And they're telling their family about what they're working on. And they're energized and excited. We're using people to their full potential versus, holding all the important things at the corner office and only giving out the not important things to everybody else. And I think it's really important with young employees. You come here, you've got a 4-year degree, you're so excited, you finally get the job at the big company, and we make you do grunt work for 10 years before we allow you to do any major projects. And that's always frustrated me with corporate jobs. At least that's what my observation was.
Yeah. I'm going to build on that for a moment. I absolutely agree that we want to be challenged. As humans, that's what we sign up for. I believe everyone wants to show up, do good work, and then go home and have a good life. I really believe that. And there's a major difference between what people feel like they need to deliver at work in order to feel like they have essentially checked the box. And then there's all of this discretionary effort that they really want to access. That's what you're talking about, that potential, that level of engagement. When someone really cares and they're invested, we can access all of that discretionary effort. When they're disengaged, when they're feeling disempowered, when they're feeling burnt out, all of that goes to zero. And I feel like great leaders are able to access all of that and figure out the nuance of the individuals on their team and figure out how to essentially support them and create the conditions in which they can thrive.
Yeah, I agree. The best leaders I've ever worked for challenged me, like put me in uncomfortable situations where I had to do something very difficult, and I ended up doing more than I thought it was possible for me to do. So it challenged me, and the results showed. We did things I didn't expect. So sometimes a challenge is good, and it's inspiring, and but we sometimes, even people who are great leaders, servant leaders, maybe they don't want. I don't want to push you. I don't want to push you to something difficult because I want to be a nice guy, right? Or a kind boss. But we thrive on sometimes being challenged and given the opportunity to have the ball. And so I think we don't think you're doing people a favor when you never give them a chance to shine.
That's it. Exactly. And going back to the idea of what do you want to be known for? Sometimes when I ask that question, people assume that it should be kind and generous and supportive. And there is no right or wrong answer to that question. If someone wants to be hard and challenging and they want to be known for that, great, go for it. I think that there's room for the whole range, and it's so important for people to be true to themselves and the type of environment that they want to create. And in that, we will inevitably attract the kinds of people that want to be with us. They want to be led by us.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. My first commanding officer was a hard man. Yeah. And he was extremely tough on us. And I loved him. I absolutely adored him because I learned so much. He made me be the absolute best I could possibly be. And if we had gone to war, I'd want to be right next to him. He was that kind of a leader, but he was not kind. He was not friendly. He was tough, and I absolutely loved it. But that was his. He probably answered that question. What kind of leader do I want to be? I want to be tough, and I want to make sure that my team is going to survive whatever comes our way. And
exactly.
I think that was his mindset, and it worked with him. And like I said, I loved working for him, even though he was a tough individual.
Yes. Isn't that wonderful? I think and that's a chasm that most leaders will never cross, is figuring out not what's natural to me, but what's effective. What's effective for the role that I'm in right now and the team that I'm leading. What do they need from me? And figuring out how to do that. That usually aligns with what do I want to be known for, but it means unlearning maybe some of our old behavior and figuring out how to lean in to what people need of me. And what a great leader that he knew he could see it in your eyes, what you needed. And I don't know how he would have shown up for you if you were to go back now, but my gut tells me that he would show up differently because you have matured and you would require something else of him as a leader. And that's what we do as leaders. We adapt.
That's it. No, we were unmolded clay, and he molded us into something that was functional and that he could rely on if he was, because I was an officer on a submarine, and if he was asleep, he needed his young officers to be able to run the ship when he wasn't there. So we needed to know everything, backwards and forwards. So he molded us into something that he could trust, and so you're right. But if I went back, it'd be different, but then I was clay, and he was clearly molding us into something, shaping us into was effective. So
that's wonderful.
So, yeah. It's interesting because you talk a lot about people. I believe that like I said, I've said that leadership is a people business. What do you think that most business leaders don't understand about people and the role of people in leadership? What do you think we're missing? Because I think one of the things I notice is that we don't really, like an MBA program, we teach everything but leadership. We teach accounting, we teach, operations and quality, but we seem to miss out on this whole idea of people. And in psychology, which you're talking about the crossover between psychology and leadership, to me, it's huge. It's more we don't teach enough psychology in MBA programs, and we should be. So what do you think people are missing?
I agree with this. So I'll ask people want to influence the way that people are behaving, or they want to influence their cross-functional partners or their manager or their team. And I'll say, okay, great. So what do you think drives them? And they'll say, I don't know. I don't know what drives them. And I ask people using a variety of questions to put themselves in the shoes of whoever it is that they're trying to influence. And that is so difficult for people. They really don't know how to take themselves out of their mindset and put themselves in the perspective of others. And so I would just boil it down to that. I could go on and on and on about what is it that leaders are not understanding about people. But it goes back to what we already touched on, which is people want to do great work. They want to be challenged, and they want feedback. They really do. I think most people underestimate how much they will drive positive change just by calling out what someone is doing well. So I do feel like when we want to be corrective in our engagement with our employees, it's okay to use positive reinforcement to accomplish that. That's something that people forget. And yeah, that they're in it too, that we don't have to dumb anything down. We can engage with them in the conversation. And most often what I'm working on with my coaching clients is to help them take what's in their head and just say it out loud to the person in the words and tone that will matter to them, that will land the way that they want it to.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that. They have a hard time putting themselves in their followers' shoes. And there's part of that is empathy. And I notice that empathy is missing in a lot. I hate to say this, and maybe I'm generalizing, but I noticed a lot of my peers when I was in corporate just had no empathy, or they would say something to me like, well, we got to get the results. Who cares if we're working overtime for a month? We got to get this out. And there was just zero empathy, I noticed. And I found just having a little bit of empathy helps you sort of put yourself in your people's shoes and sort of try to understand how they're perceiving a message. And if you don't, it's like a speaker. If you go up on stage and you don't know your audience and the kind of things that they're likely going to want to hear, and you're not addressing those issues as a speaker, then you're not going to connect with your people. So if you don't understand your people and what they're going through, you're not going to connect with your message. I think what I saw that was that lack of empathy was high, at least in the companies I worked for. But I'm not sure. It was always about results and whatever happens type of thing.
That's it. Empathy. And I would maybe add to that curiosity, because I do think they go hand in hand, just being curious about the other person and then caring about what's true for them, right? That's how I would think about empathy. And some people can't quite get there, but they can at least be curious. And okay, great. Well, let's start there. Just be curious. Wonder what's true for them, even if you don't feel like you care. Just wonder. Yeah, and can you use that as an input of how you might want to frame your message so that you can drive those results?
I love that
you care about.
Curiosity is really powerful. Yeah, asking questions and listening, and asking a lot of questions and listening and getting perspective from different people in the organization. You're like, oh shoot, well, everyone's sort of thinking this. I guess I missed. I didn't communicate that very well because everyone thinks this other thing is happening. So yeah, being curious is if you don't have empathy, be curious. That's a great piece of advice. So, we've got, listeners, we may have some newer managers on the show. And a lot of cases, people get into management because they're the best individual contributors. So they're like, okay, you're now the manager. And so, typically there's a 10-year gap typically between when you're promoted and when you actually get real leadership training. So what should new managers do to develop their leadership skills in light of the fact that they may not get training anytime in the first 5 to 10 years of that role?
Mm-hmm. I think it's be honest about what you know and what you don't know, and don't doubt or evaluate how good or bad that is. That's what happens for a lot of people, is they're lacking self-awareness. So with self-awareness, I would start with, what is it that I feel clear about? What is it that I know? And be honest about it. Do not minimize. And then what is it I don't know? And be okay about that. And figure out how to learn. What is your learning style? As a manager, what is your learning style? Do you like podcasts? Do you like books? Do you learn by trial and error? Do you learn by example? And figure out how to source that for yourself. I definitely think that's possible. I do not think that people need to wait for a leadership development to be imposed upon them. And the other one is situational awareness. Just start to track what's working and what's not working. And that is free. But it does require asking sometimes for feedback. How did that land? And making sure that the way that you think it landed, or what you think is happening for your team, it actually tracks to what is in their minds or in their hearts in that moment.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So what are you working on these days at your company?
Well, I'm working on some strategic partnerships across the globe to figure out how to scale leadership development. So we talked about 2 million leader project. I'm thinking about adding some zeros to that. I'm trying to, why not? I'm really thinking about how to gamify leadership development for our youth. I would love for more young people across the world to know how to advocate for themselves, how to listen to others. I love that you really focus on listening and the importance of that as a leadership skill. I think that listening, talking to each other, active listening, there's some just foundational skills that if we could teach them earlier in life, we would all be a lot better off.
That sounds good. Gamifying leadership development. That's that guy. I have that. I like that. So as you move further on that, I want to talk more about that because that's very interesting to me. Because I do think that one of the things I think you see is leadership development. We don't treat it like a special skill. We sort of throw it on top of everything else. Oh, you're a great engineer. We're going to make you engineering manager, and it's sort of like a footnote. Oh, you're also a leader. And I don't think we treat it as a specialized skill set that needs to be developed. And so I like that idea, gamifying. So as you develop that and you have got some things to talk about, let's have you back on that one because that's pretty exciting. So that's neat to hear. Yeah. So what final message would you like to leave with our listeners today?
I would like for every listener to take a moment, just take the biggest breath that they've taken all day. Because often we don't let ourselves pause. So take a breath and then give themselves a little pat on the back for investing the time and energy into a podcast, because this is exactly what we're talking about. So thank you for listening. Thank you for investing in yourselves, and smile. I feel like that helps reinforce a sense of gratitude and possibility. And so I'd ask for everyone just to smile and to go back to that question of what do I want to be known for, and figure out what's the littlest way that I can show up in alignment with my intention today. And the little things go a long way. So I really believe those micro interventions matter. And that's it. I want people to trust themselves and to enjoy the experience of being at work.
Such a great message. Leaders, did you hear that question? And I'll repeat it. What do you want to be known for? What is your legacy? And answer that question. If you can answer that question honestly, and you can, find your true north as a leader, and then I think it's going to make your life a lot easier. You're not going to be trying to do too many things. You're going to be focused on what you want to leave for a positive legacy with your team and the people that you influence. Because you influence a lot of people. It's not just your employees, it's their families, it's your customers, it's your community. You impact a lot of people as leaders. So what do you want to be known for? Great question. So this has really been powerful conversations. It's been really good to have you on the show. Miriam, how can people find out more about you, your company, and any other resources you might have for the leaders listening in?
LinkedIn or my website are the best places to go.
Okay, and your website is?
2mleaders.com, or you can go to leaderswhosmile.com.
Leaderswhosmile.com. I love it. So we're going to put links in the show notes for those resources. Leaders, are you smiling today? Are you stressed out today? If you want to smile more, I think once you know your purpose and once you really know what you want to be known for, I think it can be easier to smile. So I love the message. Miriam, this has been a really good conversation. A lot of things to think about with respect to leadership, with respect to people, with respect to, I love the idea of don't be a solution factory. And unless that's what you want to do, because if you just want to be a solution factory, you can be that all day long.
Yeah.
But I think we want to be more than that. Let your employees challenge your employees, let them grow, let them do things that are purposeful and help the company. And don't hoard all that solution factory just for yourself. So Miriam, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your experience, your perspective, and all the things that you're doing for leaders around the world. So thank you.
Thank you for your service, John. And also thank you for this podcast. I'm grateful. I believe that creating a podcast is a labor of love, and to put so much sustained time and energy into making these resources and support possible for so many listeners is a wonderful, wonderful contribution to the world. So thanks for everything, and thanks for letting me be a part of it today.
Absolutely. It's been an honor to have you on the show. And I hope that you reach 2 billion listeners, leaders around the world. So my hat's off to you that. I love that what you're trying to do. It fits in with our theme of trying to build a world with better bosses. So congratulations on what you're doing as well.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit our website at www.deepleadershippodcast.com or johnsrennie.com. Until next time, take care.
Welcome to the Reverie channel, where entertainment knows no bounds. Live concerts, on-demand music, documentaries, and short films, all in stunning HD. Now on Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Immerse yourself from home. And on Android and iOS for those on the move. Support creators with crowdfunding donations. Fuel their creativity. Join us in shaping entertainment's future. The Reverie channel, where every view, every donation matters.
Hey, what's happening out there, everybody? This is Lawrence Ross, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my podcast, The Lawrence Ross Show.
Egomaniac.
It's a 2-hour weekly exploration into my mind. I also do sketches, celebrity impersonations.
You're out of order!
And I also do song parodies. Not too shabby for a blind guy.
Not only are you visually impaired, but you are geographically impaired.
New episodes are released every Friday. Check it out on your favorite podcasting platform or listen to it here on Society 13 on Electrocast.